Okay, um, going back from my previous video covering encapsulation from the PowerPoint presentation, now we're going to step into the code inside Visual Studio. I went ahead and made just a completely blank application. It's not one that we started with from an exercise or anything like that. I really haven't done much to it. I renamed the form over here to productmaintenance.cs just to make a little more sense. Give us a little more context into what we'll be working with. I did click and drag a list box onto my form and made it a little bit bigger. That way we can see exactly what we're outputting to the window here. And I think I also changed the name of the form to, that's a list box. Actually, let's go ahead and change the name to that list box before I forget. So I'm going to change it to LST products since we're going to be displaying products in it. And as you can see on the form up here, I went ahead and changed the name to product maintenance. So if you're there, you can pause the video and get there. If not, we're going to go ahead and move on to exactly what we're trying to do with this product, and to be able to encapsulate this product. So before we get started with that, what I want to do is double click on this form. And when I double click on it, it'll actually create a product maintenance load event for us. So essentially whenever this form comes up, this is the code that I want to do when my form comes up. So if we remember from the previous video when I talked about the layers of a three-tiered application, how the first tier was our presentation layer, the tier at the very most top portion of that slide, which happens to be our form here. So here's our presentation layer, and then from that presentation layer what we're trying to do is present products. So what's this application going to do? This application is going to present products to a user, and then maybe what my job is as the user of this application is to pick a product and maybe edit it, save it, delete it. So maybe I'm in Amazon and I need to look at a product and be able to edit the price or delete products off Amazon. Maybe I am in charge of maintaining all of the products on Amazon. Maybe they have some sort of application like this. I doubt it. But as a use case, they have somebody in the back end actually changing all of the descriptions and prices and quantities for these products. Again, highly doubt it, but for a smaller level shop, maybe they might use something like this. There might be buttons across the bottom of the form. I can make one. Go ahead and make a button here. We're not going to use it, but just to kind of show what this application would do, we can go up, and this could be BTN edit. So this might be a button for them to edit a product once it's selected. We can change the text to edit, so maybe they might select a product, click edit, and then it would bring the product up into some context and they can edit it, save it, whatever the case may be. So again, we're not going to use that button, but maybe that's what they would use this application for. So I'll go ahead and save it. I'll go ahead and double click on this again. And so from our presentation layer, what's normally going to happen is we want to make a call, or we want to call a method. So whenever I say make a call, I'm saying call a method. And from that method call, I want to be able to call a service. So that's our second layer, or our middle layer, or our business logic layer. That's going to call the database and get the products for me. Okay? So how can I do that? So usually a service is another solution entirely, so I'm not going to code all of that right now. But what I am going to do is stub out a little bit of what a service might look like in our project here, just to show you exactly why encapsulation is important. So the first thing I'm going to do is right click here, and is here a good spot? Yeah. I want to click here and add a class, and I'm going to call that class product service.cs. I already clicked on class product service, so I'll go ahead and click on add, and you can see here it brings up a new class for me. It has very little in it, so I'm going to go ahead and make this public. That way my other class can see it over here. So this private method is going to call this public method, or this public class. So I'll probably have some sort of method in this class that's going to return a product. So what I can say is if this is my product class, I'm going to go ahead and make this maybe a static class. And then from there I can say product service dot get products. So I'm going to have a method that gets the products for me. That way I can load my form with those products. So what it's going to say here is, would you like me to generate this method? And if you look here, it gives you a little bit of a stub out of what this method is going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and let it create the method for me. And you'll notice once I create that method, this will go away, my error will go away. So if I go up to this product service, here's my new method, internal, which means I can call it from this DLL or this assembly. I'm just going to go ahead and change this to public instead of internal. Static, get products. I'll change this from void because I'm going to end up returning the list of products that I get from my fake database. So we'll work through that. I'll just leave it as void for now since it's compiling. Okay, so that being said, before we even knew that objects and classes exist, how would we have to display this information onto our table or onto our list box, right? Well, we would need some array of strings, because we have a string for code of the product, we have a string for the description of the product, and we need to display the price, and the price will be displayed as a string, but technically the price of the product and the quantity should be some sort of decimal, or the quantity needs to be an integer. So that's a little bit difficult, but let's say we have is string, and I'll go ahead and make this a two-dimensional string array, and I'll call it products equals new string, and I'll go ahead and make this maybe 3 by 3. So from there I'm going to say new string array with 3 items in it. This might be too much syntax to shorthand out. Let's try this. Let's try code description price. See if it likes that. Let's go ahead and try to make this on a couple lines, and let's make this screen bigger here. Alright. Excuse me. So now we have this. Let's see what an array initializer of length 3 is expected. Let's put this here. Okay, sorry about that. I had to look up some tricky syntax here. So I'm going to declare a new string array. I'm going to make it 3 by 3, so it's going to be two-dimensional. And I'm going to hold 3 different products in here. So I'm going to hold, again, a broom. Let's do gaming system 1, and I'll just do like PlayStation, just stuff I know stuff about here. My PlayStation is going to be $299, $299. Gaming system 2, maybe Xbox, and that can be $399, $399. And then let's make the third product a Nintendo. Actually, let's put this GS3 Nintendo, and that'll be $150. Okay, so before we knew products or encapsulation existed, this is probably how we would do it to be able to display it onto our product maintenance application. And then we could say here that we're going to return a two-dimensional array of string. So we could say something like that. Don't worry too much about the syntax because I'm not going to keep it here, excuse me. So we could say return a two-dimensional string array, which is going to be all of our products. That's 3 by 3, just to make it simple. And then I'm going to return this as my PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. And then once that gets back to my presentation layer, I can then go through and display all of that on my list box. And if you remember back, I did like nested for loops to be able to get this to display when we talked about two-dimensional arrays. So how could we do this instead of doing this? And obviously having different types, this also really doesn't help if we need to put this into a database like this, or maybe add to it or subtract or divide or do a sum or a total or tax, since it's a string value right now and not a value that's useful to us. But what we can do is we can make a product class that does this same thing. So let's go back, exit out of here, and I want to make a new class. I'm going to go ahead and add a class. I want to call that class product.cs. Again, class is selected. Type in a name and click add, and then you can see here that product happens here. And then again, I'm going to have this class be public. Go ahead and add a line right there. And then from there, I'm going to have two properties on it. So what we've seen in the PowerPoint was you can do public string code, and then from there you can have a public property that actually grabs that code and gets it and sets it. But I'm going to actually make this easier and do public string code, and I'm going to do the shorthand getter and setter here. So this under the hood does this. It's just a shorthand, so you don't have to have a getter and a setter and be able to get and return that field. I'm just going to go ahead and tell it to do it here. And I want to do the same thing with the description. Go ahead and make a generic getter and setter for it. And I want to do the same thing with the price. And again, you can do also the shorthand getters and setters for that as well. So now I have a product class that can hold a description, a code, a description, and a price for each particular instance of that product. So let's go back. Actually, let's go back to this product class. And if you remember, we can even do a constructor for it, public product. We can have a generic constructor, and then we can have another constructor where we can pass in all of these things. So string code, string description, and string, double. Let's change that to a decimal, actually. So we'll go ahead and use this, and then I'll use the object initializer at the end just to show how it's a little easier with the shorthand. From there I can say the code that's in this class, so that's what this keyword is for, this code is equal to the code that's being passed in from the constructor. And that's the same thing for the description, so this class's description equals the description that's coming from my constructor. And thirdly, this class's price is equal to the price that's coming in from my constructor. Decimal. Oh, that's a capital P. Why did I do that? Okay. So here's a very short. I can also make a public string get display text, and then you can pass in a string, which is your separator. And I'm just going to go ahead and return an empty string right now. But I'm going to go ahead and make a method that returns all of this stuff so we can display it on our user interface. So again, that was pretty fast. But let's go over here to the product service and try to return that. So from our product service, or let's go to our presentation layer. When we want our form to load, what we're going to do is call our product service and get the products from our service. So when we go to the service, what we would expect is this thing to return, instead of our string array, we want it to return a list of product. Or to be even more generic, it can return an IEnumerable of product, which just means this can be anything that implements this IEnumerable interface. So it can be a list, an array, any sort of a collection of products. So let's go ahead, below this string array, I'm going to go ahead and make a new list of products. So var products, I'll just give it products1, that way it doesn't conflict with this, equals new list of product. So now we have a collection of products. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the object initializer again, so we can throw some new products in there. So I'm going to make a new product, and then again use this object initializer, and you can see when I hit the space bar, it gives me some helpful hints. What would you like to set? Because these have getters and setters on them that I use with that shorthand syntax. So I can say the code is equal to gs1. And then you can do a comma, and then it'll give you some more direction as to what else you might want to set. Well, I want to set the description equal to PlayStation. Then I'll follow it up by a comma, and I want to set the price equal to $299.99. And I'm going to force it to be a decimal. So notice we can do that all here, and we can give it different types. We can give it strings, decimals, and whatever else we might want to give it. I'll go ahead and do a comma, and I'll copy and paste this a few more times. And then I'm going to go ahead and change everything here to what I had before. Go ahead and just make that a 3. Xbox, Nintendo, make this $3.99, and this was $1.50. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this string array. Change this back to products. And now we have a new list of products. So instead of just returning a generic list, what this probably would do is actually call our database, some sort of method or entity framework, stored procedure, or something in our database that returns all of our products. But this is just to show encapsulation, so this probably isn't what a service would do. So from there, I'm going to, instead of doing this, I'm going to return it. So return a new list of products, and they are here from our service. So it might go to the database, and these are the 3 things in our database. So now here, we can set a variable that are our products from our database. Products from database equals our product service.getProducts. So when we call products from database is equal to product service.getProducts, you'll see from there, once we go to our product service, when we call getProducts, it'll return a new list of product. So now let's go back to our product class and put in how we want this thing to be displayed. When I display it, I want to display let's go ahead and display I want to display the code, and then the separator, and then a space, and then the description, and the separator, and then a space, and then the price. I don't know if it'll like that. It looks like it liked it since it was a decimal. Okay. So now whenever we display this, we should display the code, a space, the description, maybe a comma here, a space, and then the price. Let's see if we can format this. I don't think it's going to let us format this. Yeah, we can format it here. Okay. So let's display the price as a string. And we want that string to be a currency. So back at our UI, we have our products from our database and a way to display it. And then we can go to our list box and in our list box we can do our list, and then you have an array of items which are the things in your list box, and then you can add to it, and then we're going to add to it our products from our database, but that's going to be multiple things. So we want to say, we want to make a for each. So for each product in products from our database, since we know it's multiple, it's an IEnumerable of product. So we want to turn that into a list. We can say .toList. We want to do list products.items. So we want to add it to our item array. .add. And we want to add product .toString. Actually, we want to do product get display text, because that's the method that we made to be able to get the display text. What does it not like about that? And I need to pass it a separator, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it a comma. So that's how we're going to be separating that. So let's go ahead and run our application. And now we can see when my application starts, I already have my list box with stuff in it. There's my code for my first product with the PlayStation, that's $299.99. There's my code and my description and price for my second product, and my code, description, and price for my third product. So, making the code larger again, as you can see from my presentation layer, I have my product maintenance load event, which gets my product from my service. When I step into this method, we can see that it makes some sort of database call that returns a list of products and all of the products from my database, and then on my user interface I display those products here. For each product in my product database, display it here. So now we can see if somebody adds another product to my database, I don't have to worry about what happens on the user interface. If somebody adds it to the database, what's another type of gaming system? Gaming system 2. How about just PC? Alright, so now somebody added an item to my database. I'll run my application again, and it shows up here without me needing to do any code here. They just add it to my database, and then it returns from my service. So as you can see, encapsulation allows us to encapsulate everything within a product that might come from a database or something like that, and be able to encapsulate that and choose exactly what we want to be able to see, or what we want our users to see that are using our classes and our objects. We can make multiple instances of objects. We can put constructors in our object. Where's our object at? We can put constructors in here and tell it what to do. When they call it in this manner, we can just do it with an object initializer. We can put methods in our object, and we've also seen, like as far as forms are concerned, we can put events, event handlers, delegates, operators, and all other types of things in our objects. So it's very useful to be able to encapsulate objects like this, be able to show what we're thinking, such as maybe we want to encapsulate a student, and a student might have a first name, a last name, and we might have a list of students in our class, and programmatically we could build something like this for a student and be able to display that in a list and give to instructors or professors to be able to see the students that are in their class, be able to edit the students or delete students, whatever the case may be. So I hope this was helpful, and we'll talk about more about the object-oriented principles in modules to come. Thanks.